Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Communications is a very important part of the world economy and every aspect of the world. The first great step forward in digital communications took place 2,000 years ago when the Romans introduced a system of wigwag, hilltop signalling, that carried a signal from Londinium to Roma and back within the course of a single day. That replaced the 3 months it took by sea and by cleft stick before then. When the telegraph came in the early 1800s, there was another quantum leap. And of course, when Alexander Graham Bell demonstrated the telephone system for the first time in 1876, that took us on voice to another place. And only 5 years later in Edinburgh, the telephone directory for Edinburgh had 300 connections in it in a space of only 5 years when the telephone was first demonstrated. So Scotland has been a leader in communications in many ways in the past. The Cabinet Secretary, in his opening speech, talked about broad consensus on the need for broadband, and I'm delighted that no one has attempted to break that, because we all know and assert the importance of that. The first digital communication system on which I worked when I worked in technology was in the 1960s. It ran at 110 bits per second, not kilobits, not megabits, just bits per second. But we were able to connect all 400 branches of the bank to a real-time data inquiry and data collection system at 110 bits. We've moved on rapidly with mobile technology, the GSM, first digital system, coming in 1990. I was one of the group of 12 people who piloted it in the UK. My experience as the manager of the Bank of Scotland's data centre, my telecoms bill 30 years ago used to be £10 million. The price that I could buy for that service now is a few £100. Things progress all the time. Now, I want to just, before going on too much, to just slightly rein in Finn Carson. I heard with delight that the UK is going to deliver 10 megabytes per second to everyone. That's 8 times their current promise, because it's 10 megabits, not 10 megabytes, I have to say. I'll also say that smartphones don't rely on the IEEE 802.11 standard, which is Wi-Fi, but on HDMSA, GSM, Edge, and GPRS. In other words, they use different communications technologies, so Wi-Fi is really quite irrelevant. But I do want to spend the time I've got. I may come back to Finn Carson later. But I do want to pick up a particular point of the Tory amendment, which says the digital gap is widening between urban and rural Scotland. Let's look at some numbers. In 2012, for cities, the penetration of fibre-enabled ranged from 95% in Dundee to 59% in Stirling. At the other end of the scale, in Aberdeenshire, as Mr Rumbles referred to, we were at 25.1, 33.9 percentage points behind the worst city, 74.9 percentage points behind the best. Argyll was on 26, Moray on 28, Highland 23, Western Isles, Orkney and Shetland 0. Has the gap widened? Well, clearly not. Argyll and Bute has advanced by 54.8 points, Moray by 66.2, Highland by 62.4, Western Isles by 75.9, Orkney by 74.7, Shetland by 79.6, and in Aberdeenshire, the council area in which Peter Chapman, Mike Rumbles and myself live, by 65.9. Only one city has it grown by more than 20 points. And that's Stirling, who was bottom of the pack, has grown by 34.6 points. Now, I've juggled the numbers left-handed, right-handed, two-handed, off the floor, off the wall, every which way. Rural is catching up with cities every single day. But more fundamentally, by 2021, people like myself who are in the 5% who are not fibred, and indeed don't have DAB radio, don't have Freeview, have no mobile phone signal, and cannot see either of the data satellites because of terrain issues, I expect I'm going to be fibre connected to the premise, and most of the R100 will end up being that. What that actually means is rural areas will have the capability of 300 megabits per second if they've got fibre at the premise. We'll actually be ahead of urban areas if we're lucky. Now, we need to see what comes from the contracts, but there's a huge difference between getting that fibre to the premises. This is very likely outcome of the tender that's currently out there. That's what I hear from some of those who might be interested in bidding. And the miserable 10 megabits per second that is what the UK is guaranteeing to everybody. It's well outside the 30 megabits that our government is promising, but it's substantially ahead with fibre to the premises as we're likely to have the R100. Is there a challenge here? I won't know when I'll get my fibre until a little man or woman engineer has come and looked at the path to my very door. They'll need to walk from the exchange up to my house, check where they can lay the cable. Every premise will need to be inspected before you can give a date for every premise. You can only do by area in the first instance. Premises will follow after that. Presiding officer, I'm obliged. I'll be very happy to support the government's motion. I may even think about some of the others, the Tories, a bit of a challenge.